Hi everyone. In this first article that we read, the thing that stuck out to me most was the part when it talked about how students, their high levels of student engagement when composing digital video, and also that there is authentic social collaborations. I think students bring in their own life experiences and skills that they have outside of the classroom. And when they're able to use those skills, especially in school, it, I guess it flourishes for them. And so they're totally engaged in whatever activity they do. And they sometimes even teach us as teachers some of the things that they learned outside of school. Um, Another thing that stuck out to me was when the author talks about how thinking on the screen is as important as thinking on paper in the 21st century. I think it's very important that we, as teachers, recognize that thinking is important no matter what um, model we choose to use. And lastly, the other thing that stuck out to me was that uh, teachers need engaged, significant, and sustained experiences with the technology. So in order for us to utilize technology in our classroom, we also need to be trained effectively in the tools that we use for technology. Going into the other article we read about, exploring sharing patterns for video recommendation on YouTube like social media. In this article, the author talked about how people are now an active part of the new ecosystem rather than passively receiving information as in the past. Knowing that our students and even us are a part of social media, that we're the directors, creators, and receivers of it, that's a very important thing to remember as we teach our students how to use technology in the classroom. And so now I'm going to share with you some of the resources I found online. And of course, there's YouTube that we're able to use. And I know my students are currently learning how to write about persuasive writing and their opinions. And so I searched up a couple of videos on YouTube. Here's a video of how to be more persuasive in a simple way that we can look there. There's also something called TeacherTube that I use quite often, where these are actually videos that students or different schools upload here for students to see as examples. So I think I would use this as an example of what my students would create when creating a persuasive commercial. There's also another tool I use, which is called SchoolTube, and it also shows examples of other students putting together persuasive commercials. I probably use this in the classroom by showing students what other students have created and how it should look like and sound like. And to help them develop their persuasive commercials, I created a persuasive commercial rubric. And we usually call them a checklist in second grade, but in this rubric, I want my students to focus on a purpose of their persuasive commercial, making sure that the purpose of the commercial is clear. I also want them to focus on providing supports for their position, including 3 or more reasons for support. I also want my students to show their creativity and including different types of music or visual aids, or using something other than their voices for this commercial. And then lastly, since it is a commercial, I want them to be mindful of the time frame, that it can only stay between 1 or 2 minutes. And so in hopes that creating this rubric, my students will be able to create a persuasive commercial based on what they saw in the other videos off of YouTube, TeacherTube, and SchoolTube, and then creating their own, and then hopefully in the end being able to see some of their peers' persuasive commercials and also possibly grading them as well. And so I think this is a creative way for students to be engaged in their learning, and I hope that my students will be able to stay engaged and create and develop awesome persuasive commercials. And I look forward to seeing how this is effective in our classroom. So thank you for listening.